Ladies and gentlemen, this particular video is going to be very short, but it's a small update. And I was wondering why the person sent me this video, because I'm thinking, like, I thought I saw everything about this story, about this little boy by the name of Major Harris. The 3-year-old boy and his mother were shot and killed. Beautiful baby boy right here. And I made some statements in there, made a couple jokes also, because this little boy's dad, his father, his name is Carlton, if I'm not mistaken, but his dad looks just like the rapper Lil Boosie. And I'm sorry, I'm never going to let go of that. He looked just like the rapper, from the haircut to the eyes, to the skin color, to the teeth, to the way he cuts his beard, his height. He looks like his twin, and I don't mean any disrespect by that. He looks just like the rapper. He should have just went as Boosie for Halloween. He could have literally played that off. But nonetheless, the reason why I'm talking about this now is because the mom and the son ended up dead, and I said, how and why? Well, when we looked at that story, let me see if I can show you guys a picture. This is one of 5 individuals who are being looked at as potentially responsible for the murder. This individual took his own life. And because he took his life, that leads me to believe that he was probably the one who shot and killed the mother and the little boy for whatever reason. I don't know if he had some type of illicit relationship going with the mom. I don't know if this was a drug hit. And the reason I brought that up is because Carlton, aka the Boosie lookalike, has a long criminal rap sheet. I'm going to say it again. He has a long criminal rap sheet. And I'm not saying that in any form of slander. I'm saying that because we were able to look up his current public records. On records, stuff we can prove in court, right? Stuff we can't be sued over because it's a fact, not fiction, not opinion. All right? Now, this man currently has a ton of warrants out. And I know a lot of people who watched the original video looked at that and they said, Jay, this man lost his son. Have you no respect for yourself? You can't let this man grieve. And I said, he lost his son. Can I let him grieve? And I said, you know what? What if his illicit activities caused the demise of his son? What about that? What about that as a possible scenario? What if what he was involved in, or maybe somebody trying to get revenge on this man, ended up ultimately costing his son his life because they were trying to get to him, could get to him, and they took it out on his son and baby mama, which is not uncommon for criminals to do, for gangbangers to do, for people who get hits put out on them. This is not uncommon. To make an example out of them and to get what it is that you want out of these people. Yes? So with all of these things being considered, I took information from a website. I don't have it up in front of me right now. And this website read paragraphs, multiple paragraphs of his long criminal history. And I think it dated all the way back, I think, to like 2008, if I'm not mistaken. 2008, 2012, 2015, 2017, 2020, 2021. It was just a long list of things that he was charged with and has open warrants for. And people said, why did you bring all of that up? You just trying to tear down another black man. Actually, no, I'm not. But let me also tell you how bad of a person I believe this man is. And I think the video that I'm getting ready to show you guys is going to further confirm my thoughts and fears that this alleged father is a horrible person. Let me give you guys the fair usage, and let me see if I can change some of y'all's minds about this man. Let's get it. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. Let me preface for a moment. If you guys looked at the pictures, you could see that the biological mother is white. The biological father is black. What do you get when you put them together? You get a mixed race child. The baby boy is mixed. So his mom's side is white, dad's side is black. This is the white side of the family. These are the grandparents. These are the grieving grandparents who lost their grandson for reasons they still don't have answers to. So here's what happened. They had an agreement as to where the child was going to be buried to lay him to rest. That is a very emotional, spiritual thing that people have to go through. It is so difficult, especially when a life is lost so young, right? Both sides are dealing with this. But the dad ended up wanting to change the funeral venue. He's the biological father, so he has a large say-so. He changed the venue, but y'all got to hear from the grandparents' mouth why that was such a horrible thing. I hope y'all are ready for this. If y'all have not seen this, I thought this video was so powerful, I decided to do an update because it was that powerful. Listen to what they had to say. Let's get it.
We had the casket picked out, we had the gravesite dug, we had his name put on the cards, everything was planned.
A family feud they wish was laid to rest. The grandparents of little Major Harris say even his funeral brought them new grief. And that is our big story tonight at 10. If the murder of a 3-year-old boy was not tragic enough, the unexpected battle over his burial has taken the heartbreak to a whole new level.
Tonight, Major Harris's grandparents open up to Fox 6 investigator Brian Colson about the violence that has torn their family apart.
I tell you, that kid never stopped smiling.
If you've seen a picture of Major Harris by now, chances are it's this one taken in August, the day his grandpa took him fishing for the first time.
He even held his own pole, fishing and everything.
Paul Munzenberger says he was trying to do the things a father would do.
Show him a strong male figure in his life that he can rely on and trust someday.
Of course, Major did have a father.
My son was shot in the head, a 3-year-old baby.
Carlton Harris.
My plea to the world, I need justice for my son.
Carlton Harris is the birthright father, that's it. He does not earn the expression dad.
Breaking news in this case, police say they have found the SUV, but not the child.
Milwaukee police first discovered the body of 25-year-old Mallory Munzenberger on October 14th, but it was 2 days before they learned her 3-year-old son was missing, prompting an Amber Alert. Police say the suspect, 20-year-old Jaheim Clark, shot himself to death, and a week-long search eventually led authorities to the boy's discarded body near 35th and Roar.
We don't know what happened. I mean, it was a brutal murder for both of them.
But for Paul and Mary Munzenberger, what happened next has only magnified their grief.
My plan is to bury him by his mother.
After Major's body was found, Carlton Harris publicly declared his intentions for Major's final resting place.
Will that be in La Crosse?
Yes, ma'am. Or wherever her family want him to be buried, that's where we're going to do it.
Y'all heard that? Let me rewind this. For those who think I got this wrong, listen at his own words. Listen at this. I'm going to rewind this 2 more times.
For Major's final resting place.
Will that be in La Crosse?
Yes, ma'am. Or wherever her family want him to be buried, that's where we're going to do it.
And
or wherever her family want him to be buried, that's where we're going to do it.
Do words matter or do they not matter? Listen at this again.
Yes, ma'am. Or wherever her family want him to be buried, that's where we're going to do it.
He said wherever they want it to be buried, that's where we're going to do it, right? I'm assuming Carlton is a man of his word, right? I'm sure he wouldn't renege if he said he was going to do something, that he's going to do it, right?
Or wherever her family want him to be buried, that's what we're going to do it.
And accordingly, the Munzenbergers say the 3-year-old's remains were transported all the way across the state.
We had the casket picked out, we had the gravesite dug, we had his name put on the cards, everything was planned.
When Harris had a sudden and unexplained change of heart.
It was gut-wrenching when they finally, he changed his mind. We just didn't understand why he would do that. How anybody could do that.
Instead of La Crosse, Harris insisted his son's funeral and burial should take place in Madison. And then, the Munzenbergers say, he didn't even show up to the funeral.
I think it's because of his warrants.
Carlton Harris has been harshly critical of police for the way they handled the search for his missing son.
How is this not a failure? This is an epic fail. I don't care what you say. It's an epic fail, or what anyone has to say. This, to me, is an epic fail. It's an epic fail.
But Harris has had his own share of run-ins with the law. In fact, he was once considered one of the 10 worst violent offenders in Madison, and there are currently open warrants for his arrest in 3 separate Wisconsin counties.
Y'all hear that? Let me rewind that. For those who think that he didn't have nothing to do with causing all of this turmoil.
It's an epic fail.
But Harris has had his own share of run-ins with the law. In fact, he was once considered one of the 10 worst violent offenders in Madison, and there are currently open warrants for his arrest in 3 separate Wisconsin counties, 2 of them for domestic violence, including a 2019 case in La Crosse, in which Harris is accused of choking, scratching, and pulling the hair of Mallory Munzenberger.
Y'all heard that, right?
It's an epic fail.
But Harris has had his own share of run-ins with the law. In fact, he was once considered one of the 10 worst violent offenders in Madison, and there are currently open warrants for his arrest in 3 separate Wisconsin counties, 2 of them for domestic violence, including a 2019 case in La Crosse, in which Harris is accused of choking, scratching, and pulling the hair of Mallory Munzenberger.
We want him to pay for all of his crimes.
Milwaukee police are clear. Carlton Harris is not a suspect in Mallory's death or in the death of his son, Major. But the allegations of domestic abuse have strained family ties and compounded Paul and Mary's grief for Mallory.
We know she's in heaven.
And for the little boy who will never go fishing again.
So if you guys missed it, he said, I'm down with wherever they want to have the funeral at. And then all of a sudden he changed his mind and said, I want to change the venue to have the funeral somewhere completely different. So he made it to where the funeral was much further away than the family and friends could have been there, what they already had plans for. And when you do stuff like this, you have to make plans. And then on top of that, this a-hole moved the venue, going against his own word, and then he didn't even show up to his own son's funeral. He didn't. Why y'all mad at me? Why y'all mad at me? He moved the venue and did not show up to his own son's funeral. But y'all want to say he's grieving, or is he a criminal? They say he didn't show up because he knew he had warrants and he would have been arrested if he would have showed up. So if that's the case, then why did you turn around and make the family change the venue? What? And people are still going to defend this. That's why I think that it's something wrong in this world with certain people. Because there's people that are still going to defend this father.
Picture of Major Harris by now. Chances are it's this one taken in August, the day his Of course, Major did have a father.
My son was shot in the
SUV, but not the child.
Milwaukee police first discovered the body. Of 25-year-long search eventually led authorities to the boy's discarded body near 35th and Roar.
We don't know what happened. I mean, it was a brutal murder for both of them.
But for Paul and Mary Munzenberger, what happened next has only magnified their grief.
Right here. Here's where I want you guys to listen at this point. And if somebody disagrees, I have the link open. You can click the link that's in the chat. The mic is hot. Click the damn link. I don't want to hear you typing in the chat if you have a disagreement. Click the link and tell me what I'm saying that's inaccurate.
My plan is to bury him by his mother.
After Major's body was found, Carlton Harris publicly declared his intentions for Major's final resting place.
Will that be in La Crosse?
Yes, ma'am. Or wherever her family want him to be buried, that's where we're going to do it.
And accordingly, the Munzenbergers say the 3-year-old's remains were transported all the way across the state.
We had the casket picked out. We had the gravesite dug. We had his name put on the cards. Everything was planned.
When Harris had a sudden and unexplained change of heart.
It was gut-wrenching when they finally, he changed his mind. We just didn't understand why he would do that. How anybody could do that.
Instead of La Crosse, Harris insisted his son's funeral and burial should take place in Madison. And then, the Munzenbergers say, he didn't even show up to the funeral.
Let's hear that again.
His funeral and burial should take place in Madison. And then, the Munzenbergers say, he didn't even show up to the funeral.
You could do that.
Instead of La Crosse, Harris insisted his son's funeral in Madison. And then, the Munzenbergers say, he didn't even show up to the funeral.
I think it's because of his warnings.
Carlton Harris has been harshly critical of police for the way they handled the search for his missing son.
How is this not a failure? This is an epic fail. I don't care what you say. It's an epic fail, or what anyone has to say. This, to me, is an epic fail. It's an epic fail.
But Harris has had his own share of run-ins with the law.
And this is a large part of the problem in our society, when you'll continue to have people who keep defending criminals. You should just not, like, even if you don't want to disparage criminals like I do, especially when children's deaths are involved, you could just not say nothing. Let alone going out there and doing something despicable like advocating for criminals and criminal behavior. That exacerbates the problem, and it makes people like him and other people like him believe that what they're doing is okay, it's right, and there's always going to be somebody to back them, hide them, help them, support them through making bad choices, until that individual, their behavior, and that death comes to your door and it hits your family members, and then you're sitting there talking, oh, we so sad. We don't know why this happened. When you are encouraging the criminal element, criminal behavior, and criminal mentality. When you have plenty of opportunities to nip crime in the bud, like this. Everybody saw that man there. There's 100 people standing there and nobody called the police and said that he was there, knowing that he was wanted. Then he goes to another place. Everybody knows he's there. Nobody says anything. Then he says he's going to be at one location for the funeral. Doesn't show up. Changes the plans. Moves the venue to a venue he can't even go to because the police are now finally like, oh yeah, that's right. We have access to the news too. We can find out where he's going to be at. Just as easily as DJ Just Jay found out where he's going to be at, and everybody else in the news found out where he's going to be at. And he no-showed at his own son's funeral. And if people are going to defend that, then I'm going to just keep doing what I do and speaking my words. But I feel so sorry for people like that, because the communities that y'all live in, when y'all support bull crap like that, are going to continue to get worse. And we're going to continue to just talk about it in the news. When are we going to step up for these children and make things better for these children? Not make things better for criminals. Not change the laws for the criminals so they can get less time or do 85% of their sentence, or let them out because of this thing going around and saying people are getting sick. It's disheartening to think that we need to put children first, and that boy should be number one priority. The number one priority should have been to make sure that his body could rest in peace, because his soul is at peace now. He would have been at peace, perfectly fine, where the grandparents had already agreed where he was going to be at. So when we have more updates to do about this story, we will, because I'm sure there's going to be more. And I'm sure the dad is going to continue to drag this out and run from his problems like the little boy that he is. He's not a man. He's an irresponsible individual. All right. Thank y'all for listening. That's a little bit of an update. And we'll be back to tell you guys, because there's so much more to talk about with this story. Okay. Thank y'all.